two questions: upcoming features and also long-term vision.
How cool would it be if you incorporate AI? You could narratively describe what it was you want. It's like having this huge, great Lego kit. You just need to bolt them together. It's the same thing goes with Appeggio. We've built all of the stuff under the water first, and putting that AI layer on the top of it is relatively simple. It's less about the technology and it's more about we allow people to interact with it. How do I get you to write the right prompts without having to take you through a course or give you a cheat sheet? That's the key from here.
Hello everyone, welcome. Today we're going to talk to the founder of Appeggio. Now, Appeggio is a no-code platform that allows businesses to be able to create and manage applications really easily. It's designed to be user-friendly, enabling people with that technical knowledge or skills to build and customize their tools. And this feature of Appeggio alone is what makes it really stand out, especially for businesses, whether you're small, medium, or large, that are seeking efficiency without the need for complex coding knowledge. Now, so Alex, thanks so much for coming onto this video podcast, or if you're listening, it's a podcast itself. And what I always like to do is just start off by introducing yourself and perhaps maybe briefly highlighting what Appeggio, in your words, is unique in the SaaS world.
Thanks, Adam. Great to be here. Lovely to chat. I'm Alex Twigg, as Adam said, co-founder of Appeggio, with my colleague James Ladd. I've been a banker and a technologist for the last 30 years across the UK, US and Australia. Had loads of fun building neobanks. Now I'm looking at trying to get Appeggio off the ground, and which is a no-code platform. And as you said, no-code is all about citizen development. It's allowing individuals the ability to build enterprise-grade websites and native applications without ever having to know how to write a line of code. And that's the real secret of Appeggio.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that, that's pretty much what's happening now today, the trend of no-code. We'll get to your story in a second, because that's a very, very interesting story. But the trend of no-code, we've heard of platforms like Bubble and what have you. And I guess, perhaps for the listeners and viewers out there, if you'd like to highlight the core differences and why Appeggio would stand out above the rest as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I always talk about the no-code as a continuum. There's lots of no-code tools out there. At one end of the spectrum, you've got what I call the big end of town, the Uncorks, Mendix, Appian. These are great big enterprise-grade applications and platforms. They are fantastic at building software. But the problem with those tools is they're really low-code tools. They're not no-code tools. And you need to be a skilled engineer to use them. So you don't really get that benefit of citizen development that you want. Great for increasing the productivity of your engineering team if you can afford one of those. Not great if you don't have one of those. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. At the other end of the spectrum, there's the citizen developer tools. Bubble, Adalo, Airtable, Softer. There's a whole host of them. They're fabulous at democratizing software. Pretty much anybody can learn to use them. They are great for the solopreneur or doing an MVP. They help you to do things really quickly and fast without having to go and employ developers. They really struggle though when you need to scale. So if you want something that's secure, resilient, scalable, supportable, that fits inside an enterprise grade software delivery governance lifecycle, that's where they struggle. And both ends of the spectrum share the same problem, which is, for most tools, they have a target platform, whether that be a website or whether that be a native app. And they struggle to do more than one of those things at any one time. So with Appeggio, we set out to build an enterprise grade citizen developer platform that enables you to design once and deploy many. So you can design it once and then deploy it as a website, as a native Android, native iOS app. And in the future, there's no reason why you couldn't deploy it as a Windows app or an Apple app or even a Salesforce app, right? Because of the sort of the technical architecture we've got there.
Yeah. That's definitely some big statements, and I think that whilst we're going through and I guess searching for that solution, it's very hard to sort of nail down which one to use and why you would use that as well in general. And I think before we get to the next following questions, it's really important to know the story about yourself, Alex, and it's a really fascinating story about how you came to be. And I guess from there, if you want to give us a bit of history about your story as well, and I guess your journey to then building Appeggio.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, I've been really lucky over the last 30 years to be involved in some really amazing things. I left school, went straight into the local branch of the NatWest Bank when I was 18 years old as the T-boy. That was a brilliant learning experience for me. Back in the day, you had to learn and know everything about banking. It was a proper, almost apprenticeship, right? Which doesn't happen today in banking. Got to learn everything that you could learn about retail banking and commercial banking, and was then very lucky to go and join the part of a strategy organisation for another financial institution, where I wrote a few papers, and CRM was becoming a thing, and somehow or another, and I still don't know to this day, I managed to get a six months secondment into IT. Not sure how that really happened. Just going back a little bit, my dad was an electronic engineer when I was growing up, so he built our first computer on the dining room table, an Apple One, when I was a kid, and so I taught myself to code BASIC out of a book when I was 8 years old, and then became a banker. So I've never quite worked that out, but that's how it worked. But anyway, I got this strange secondment into IT for 6 months. Ended up staying 6 years. Helped build their first transactional website, helped build their year 2000 program, a whole bunch of stuff there. Then ended up going with an ex-colleague of mine to meet in Derby City Football Ground car park, where we signed an NDA, and I became part of the team that helped launch Egg Bank in the UK, which was sort of like the first real neobank in the dot-com boom. That was a fabulous learning experience. I worked with some really inspirational leaders there that taught me so much about how you need to approach startup in a way, right? How you need to think so differently, and how the tool set that you as a leader have got from your working in a traditional enterprise organization, and how it needs to be different when you work in a startup. So I did that. Ended up with that, getting the opportunity to go to the US for 2 years, where I helped most of the North American banks on what they would now call their digital strategy. Then it was their Web 2 strategy, the adoption of agile software development, delivery. So I worked with Citigroup, E-Trade, Charles Schwab, a whole host of others, including a big deal with Fidelity Investments. Then came down to Australia in 2008. To help launch UBank, which was NAB's digital bank. Extremely lucky to be asked to help do that. Like every other POM, I came to Australia expecting to be here for 2 years and go home. After 6 months, we fell in love with Australia, and we're now citizens and have been here for 15 odd years. So that's great. I became CEO of UBank after about 18 months, and that was a huge learning curve for me. To help take that business from PowerPoint to the 9th largest bank in Australia in 6 years, without a branch, entirely digital. That was a lot of fun. Phenomenal team, just a great experience. Then went for a little bit of a detour by Woolworths Group, the supermarket chain. Another great experience. I didn't know there was so much to know about supermarkets until I joined Woolworths. Originally, I was due to help them build another digital bank, much like a Tesco's Direct in Australia. That didn't come off for a number of reasons, but while that was going on, I was very lucky to be approached by a couple of ex-colleagues of mine who were looking at what was going on in the UK with Aldermore and Shawbrook, the new SME banks there. And we thought that there would be something similar occur in Australia. So, we mortgaged the kids and the houses, gave up corporate careers, and tried to launch what was originally launched as Judo Capital. And then we got a banking license, became Judo Bank, and then so that business went from PowerPoint to a $2.4 billion IPO a couple of years ago, which was a good bit of fun. After leaving Judo, I then went on to help Standard Chartered Bank up in Singapore get a digital banking license from the first digital banking license in Singapore, which is now Trust Bank, which has gone from strength to strength. That was a lot of fun. Did that through the middle of COVID. Had to build an entire team, get a banking license, and build a platform without actually ever being in the same room with any of my team, which was quite a bit of fun. But going back just one step, Judo was sort of, if you like, the thought process that helped to evolve Appeggio, because Judo was the first. I was co-founder and CIO of Judo. And with the team there, the technology team, we decided that we would try and build the first born in the cloud bank. So entirely cloud native bank from day one. Didn't own a single server, didn't employ a single developer, bolted together over 50 software as a service systems to create an end-to-end banking solution in 18 months for less than a couple of $1 million. I mean, it was probably one of the things that, really stood out as an achievement there. Along with a whole host of others, but from a technology perspective, that was the first time that had ever been done. I mean, most banks were really struggling to put one service in the cloud, let alone the whole bank in the cloud. But what that meant was that we had this entire SaaS platform, which was great because it meant that we could minimize the costs associated with the business. Our operational costs followed our operational success. We could rely on the huge investments made by others in their platforms. I mean, as a startup CIO of a bank, I couldn't afford the 2 floors of security architects that NAB have got, right?
2 floors. To say it lightly.
I was lucky to get one, right? One person, let alone one floor, right? So because SaaS was becoming a thing back then, 6 or 7 years ago, we could get the benefit of, the billions of dollars a year that Microsoft and AWS put into their SaaS platforms, all the money that gets put into by the others, the SaaS platform providers themselves. And so it was like, we could get reverse economies of scale. So that was great. It means we could do things really quick, really fast, but it had sort of the downside to it was this, which was to gain those benefits, to reap all of those benefits. You had to make sure that you kept really vanilla to the products, because as soon as you start to change those products or in any way, you sort of get the worst of both worlds. You then get the development costs associated with building your own stuff, and you don't get the flexibility of building your own stuff. So it's a really disciplined approach you have to have around that. So you almost get all the risks and none of the cost benefits. So if you take that approach. So, but what that meant was that we managed to do it really fast. We could do it really cheaply. But we had to keep with the vanilla products and therefore the vanilla customer experiences that came with those products. Now, as Judo, that wasn't a huge problem because our customer experience is all about face-to-face relationship banking. That's what our customers wanted. That's where the gap in the market was. And so, our goal was to try and digitize everything behind the banker, not put a digital front end on the banker. And that was the real secret of the sort of technology platform for Judo. I mean, it's a stretch, but I always used to say from the beginning, the vision was that a banker could go out to meet a customer on their premises, look at the stock, review the factory, agree a deal, walk back to their car in the car park, fill out everything on their iPhone, and get the documents to the customer before they left. That was what we wanted to achieve. Never quite got there, but it was close enough, right? But what that meant, when we started to think about, and James, my co-founder on Appeggio, was doing some really cool things with no code. Started to think about how those things interacted, because really, what we missed in the judo experience was the ability to create our own digital experiences on top of the SaaS platforms. And so what Appeggio does is we talk about Appeggio as being an experience as a service platform rather than a no-code platform. And the reason we say that is because it allows the non-technical folk, which in large organizations is traditionally your product managers, your business analysts, to actually build end-to-end high-quality digital experiences and orchestrate over the top of APIs. Now, the reason why that's important is because if most SaaS platforms have gone from being just completely SaaS to now what they call headless SaaS, which is, they will provide a front end to it, but most of it, they want you to hook into their APIs. So if we can provide for Appeggio this ability for non-technical folk to build the digital interaction that the customer has, and hook into the APIs of the SaaS platforms that sit underneath, now you get the benefits of both sides of the equation. You get the ability to create a bespoke digital experience without all the costs associated with bespoke development. And you get all the benefits of the investment that the SaaS providers have put into their tools below underneath. So that's the sort of journey, if you like, that brought us from that everything as a service, as we used to call it, strategy at Judo, and how that combines with the experience as a service strategy for Appeggio.
What a journey, just to highlight a couple of those comments. I think what I liked is from PowerPoint to essentially launch. I mean, and you're going through a concept. I think banks are quite traditional, and to transition from a bricks and mortar approach or a paper approach to completely online. There's so many security issues with that as well. I'm sure that there's a whole nother conversation around how you were able to bring that off the tables into the cloud. That would be a fascinating story to really unpack a little bit further as well. But then it really does bridge the gap between, I guess, all of the experiences that you had from launching a digital chain of transactions, if you will, that spanned into Woolworths. That's another really interesting point. But now, of course, how that connects onto Appeggio. So therefore, I guess it's always good to really highlight that then. So the core pain points, I guess, that Appeggio would solve for and really address in that instance. If you'd like to perhaps just describe why it is so valuable in that front.
Yeah, sure. So look, I always talk about software development as, a big game of pass the message. Even in an agile world, there's some product manager somewhere that has a good idea, that talks to a business analyst, who writes a paper, who writes a specification, even if the specification is just a story card, right? Or but it still has to be written down, and then a developer will come along and pick that up. Has to interpret that story or that specification. And then a tester has to interpret the results and the meaning of what you wanted to do for it. And then, you go through that whole process. So it's this huge chain of events, that has to go through. And we always see this dilution of proposition as that happens. Not because of anybody's doing anything wrong, simply because you can't be 100% efficient. It's a bit like, you can't have a 100% efficient engine. You can't have a 100% delivery efficient process. And that's just the process. And then you start to think about what happens at the end, right? So, now you end up with some code. But along that process, then there will have been some prioritization conversations gone on around, what functions can we do and what functions can't we do? There'll have been some stuff around well, we need to make this thing secure, resilient, scalable, all of that non-functional stuff that most business folk don't even know to ask for. I mean, I've been in conversations with sort of engineers at some point, and they get, and I'm going, well, look, guys, the website's fallen over, and they go, well, okay, why is the website falling over? And they go, well, and I go, because we seem to have 100 people on the website at the time, and they go, well, you never told us you want to be able to fit 100 people on the website at any one time.
You have to really spell it out plainly,
right? Yeah,
you have to have that foresight as well. I mean, that's impossible,
right.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's absolutely, and everything from security, all those non-functionals that, I mean, I've got 30 years of being burnt by these things, right? That to know what my checklist of things are that need to be there, right? Yeah. So this is one of the things we wanted to do with Appeggio, and James is brilliant at this, building in all of those non-functional requirements into the platform. So they happen by default. You don't have to ask for them. They will always happen. And because Appeggio is, generatively code written itself, it generates its own code, it never has a bad day. It never forgets to do something, right? It will always follow the best practice, right? So that's really, really great. So, those are the sort of key things why you work it. Now, the second part of this is, we mentioned the pass the message process, but I don't care how good you are at talking about specifying your requirements. Requirements process is an iterative process, right? And because when you see something, you go, oh no, that doesn't work, right? And you have to go back and you have to go, oh, we need to change this or we need to do that, right? And that's a huge problem for software development teams, who build, to specifications, and even worse if you're dealing with a third party that you've got a contract with, right? So that iterative process is really hard, and generally ends up in expense. And this is where you end up with all sorts of, workarounds and what's in technology terms is called technical debt. Things that aren't done quite the way they should be done, and that builds up over time. So the beauty with Appeggio, because it recreates everything every time you change something, you don't have to save a version. Literally every time you move a pixel around the screen, it recreates the whole project. So it will always create the best version of what you can. You can go and you can try stuff. If it doesn't work, or user experience feedback's bad, you literally go back to the design process and just move stuff around, add some bits and pieces, and it does it again for you. So you can iterate around as many times as you like, basically for free, as much as it's your time rather than everybody else's time involved in that process. So that's really key. The other things that start to think about from an expense point of view, particularly for enterprise, is it always makes me chuckle a little bit when we talk about no-code tools, because no-code tools, it's almost an oxymoron. They produce code, and so you go, great, I've got this code now, which is fabulous. What am I going to do with it? So you got to find a server somewhere for you. If you got, if you're an enterprise, you've got to find an operations team. You've got to be able to release it. You've got to be able to put it through a release cycle. You've got to, you've got to manage it and maintain it and support it, and do patch fixes and all the other bits and pieces that go along with it. Again, so this is where Appeggio is talked about as an experience as a service platform, because we never give you any code. We will do the deployment processes for you into elastic AWS environment, so you don't have to worry about scalability. We'll deploy it to the app stores for you. You don't have to worry about all of that process. And when you want to manage and maintain it, you just move some stuff around on the screen, change your CMS, whatever it is, and press the button, and it all flows through for you. You never have to worry about that stuff. So this is why, in just the same way that you have a SaaS platform that looks after your CRM, right? You never have to worry about the code for that. You never have to go and look at the Salesforce back end to work out how to do it. this should be exactly the same way for a digital experience. And this is what we're talking about for Appeggio. And, then it comes down to, let's forget for a second the functional code that you've written for your digital experience. But as a business person, I don't know 9/10 of what the technical operations team do on a day-to-day basis to, keep and maintain the security on those servers, make sure that you've got enough capacity in your system, in your ecosystem, to protect against cyber threats and all the other bits and pieces that goes along in the background, right? There's whole armies of people that do that stuff, right? Again, with Appeggio, what we've tried to do is bake all of that into the service. So, the whole back end, we manage and monitor the back end. We do all the alerting, we do all the patching, we do all of the scalability and security analysis. Everything that happens in an IT operations team happens for you as part of the experience as a service platform. So bringing that whole technology delivery capability to you as a package, which you don't even know has to exist, which ironically is probably what most people know today. But they certainly understand the bill that they get when they have to pay for it all. Right?
So that's a big one. I think the key words are 30 years of being burnt. What you said previously, and what that means is that going through these experiences and dealing with your various different contractors, your internal development team, security consultants, to then constantly be burned, have to go back and having all this knowledge that you've brought and then developing a platform that's literally no code. It literally takes all that away, creates all of that efficiency for you, essentially, so you could just focus on product and release
exactly right.
and iterations based on market fit, which is a big step forward. A big step forward. That's absolutely brilliant. And I think this is a great sort of segue because you've got the platform to where it is now, which is quite exciting. And you've launched Banks before, so that's a big one. And Banks, I dare say, arguably would be quite a difficult thing to do. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's not on the easiest list of things to do. No.
So now you've got all of these learnings that you've taken across your 30 years that you've been doing this for, and now you've got a software platform that you launched, which is arguably not different to what you did with Banks, but you've taken that difficult sector that you've launched in. So, what challenges have you faced so far with Appeggio whilst you've been scaling? And how best have you found to overcome them as well?
Oh, look, Appeggio's a startup business like every other startup business, right? There's the standard checklist funding, getting the right people into the organization, trying to, deal with clients, trying not to overpromise, but still trying to give phenomenal service. Trying to build a platform at the same time as trying to sell a platform. All of that stuff is hard, right? It never goes away. It's not, it translates across all startup organizations, and it's still is emotionally hard. And this is probably my 6th or 7th time through this process, right? It still is emotionally hard. And in some ways it's almost worse because that you're going to go through that. And that this isn't a straight line from A to B, right? That there's going to be detours along the way. There's going to be massive potholes in the road that you never even thought of. It's just about the thing that's easier doing it this many times is you understand the amount of resilience you need. And for me, that resilience is the most important thing that any founder needs. right? Yeah, having a great idea is fantastic. Having a great team's even better. Having funding's great. But even with funding, it's always finite. It's never enough. And your ability to, dodge and weave all of the hurdles and pitfalls that you're going to have is the most critical thing. The ability to problem solve, the ability to get out of excuse my French, get out of the shit, is the most valuable thing any founder can have. Trying to sort the wheat from the chaff, I must get 1,000 emails a week from people that want to be involved, sell me stuff, have a great idea for me, a way to sell stuff for me, all this sort of bits and pieces. I'm trying to work out which ones of those are the golden nuggets and which ones of those are a complete waste of time. Is also really hard to do. And it's a sense that you get over time. You have to learn quite how you do that. But I don't get it right all the time by any stretch of the imagination. I've quite often gone on wild goose chases thinking things are going to go out brilliantly and they turn out complete rubbish. Other times, and it works the other way as well. I found that sometimes, there's things that you've sort of ignored and, you've not really paid any attention to at all because you thought they're a complete waste of time. Sometimes you stumble on those again and they actually turn out to be brilliant. So, it's the ability to keep an open mind and sort of prioritize as you go through is really key.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? So multiple decisions throughout the entire day. Imagine that, so 1,000 emails or thousands of emails that come through as well, and then trying to pick those nuggets. You're deciding who to speak to, who to spend time with. So time is the most important thing, but then you got the grit, resilience, which is a huge factor as well. And this is the part that I really like to understand that, because I think that when it comes to grit, resilience, and the romance, okay, so the romance being, it's romantic, right? Starting a SaaS business. Oh, it's exciting. You've got a great idea and, people around you say, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. And you go out and do it. And then all of a sudden it gets a little bit hard. And there's so many failed projects out there, so many softwares that just sort of sit in that very initial phase of prototype, and it stays there, which funny enough, Appeggio helps with. But besides that point, so then in that case, I always like to understand, so what are the ways that you can give, what tips can you give in terms of how you manage that in terms of your day? So do you have a sort of like a morning ritual that you like to do? Do you like to sit in front of your computer, structure yourself, or do you have even a software that you tend to use that does that for you as well? Or do you have people?
No, I don't have people. That's definitely something I don't have. Look, I think the key for me is, and I've probably done this for the last 15 years, is work out the night before what the three most important things for the next day are.
Yeah.
And I do that for two reasons. One, because it's easy to lose a lot of time in the morning when you get up and you got to try and prioritize your day and do all that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, you can sort of take 5 minutes, work out what it is. You can have a think about it. And I don't know if my brain works different to everybody else's. I'm sure it doesn't. But, as I'm sleeping on that stuff overnight, if I've sort of set the parameters for the sort of like the overnight compute process,
the no code.
That's right. I'm in batch mode. I actually find that in the morning, those three things are quite clear for me, and it's actually quite easy for me to get on and crack on those. And I the other thing that I do, which is a secret I learned from an old mentor of mine back in Egg days, and the thing he used to say, and I never really used to think much about it at the time, but now I understand what he was saying, which was the morning is for building, the afternoon is for operating.
Huh. I like that. Yes. Yeah.
And he's absolutely true, because your thought processes from sort of 6 in the morning till 11 are, the most valuable ones. But after 11 o'clock, you're tired, stuff's happened in your day, you don't get anywhere near as good stuff done in the afternoon to do in the morning. So build in the morning, operate in the afternoon, when you can sort of go on autopilot in the afternoon. And that works really well.
Yeah, I'll just touch on that. But there's also that old the story about the judge who they did a study on when all the prosecutions occur. You may have heard about this one. So a judge, doesn't matter where, but essentially would they were just almost like they ran a survey, if you will, or they analysed some results of when prosecutions tend to happen, and whether it happens at what time of the day usually. And what they found was that in the morning, the least amount of prosecutions occurred for a judge to prosecute a criminal.
Really?
But post lunchtime in the afternoon, that's when all the most harshest sentences would be given.
Wow.
Because and it comes down to eating lunch. Because you literally, and once you have lunch, what happens to your blood? It goes into your stomach. But us people, we don't have naps. We keep going, and then therefore your moods change, and then therefore your decisions change with that as well. So you're in a worse mood in the afternoon. So that probably rings true to that 6 to 11 a.m.
Yeah,
time block.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I can't remember where I heard that, but maybe I can link that that story. I didn't really explain it the best, but that's okay.
That's great.
So then that's good. So I like that. So 3 things before you go to bed. Your mind does continue working after you sleep. There's also proof of that, which explains a lot. So just 3 things, right? So you've got a million things to do, but you just focus on those 3 things. So you wake up, you already got that on front of mind. You don't need to make those decisions in the morning, and off you go. So 6 to 11. So good segue into my next question, which is around your current growth strategies. Okay, so with Appeggio doing what you're doing, you do target a wide range of customers, from early startups, if you will, bricks and mortar as well can definitely when they want to go into those systems, like what you did with Woolworths, essentially, all the way through to enterprise. So I guess, do you have a specific growth strategy that you're doing right now? And what I mean by that is, I guess, what's your number one path that you're taking at the moment that you're focused on to grow the business?
Yeah, great question. Look, there are 3 potential customer groups for Appeggio. Mm-hmm. Customer group number 1 is BRI, man on the street, man or woman on the street, that wants to build something, right? And that's great. That's fantastic. And if we could become, anything like the Canva for apps, that would be awesome, right?
Canva for apps.
But, and they're relatively easy to get hold of those people, social media, etc. So that's, one marketing sort of strategy. The second and the primary group that we're going after right now is what I call agencies. And these can be anybody, any agency, from a one-man band on Fiverr all the way through to PwC and Saatchi at the other end. But the thing that defines an agency is that they build stuff for other people. So, obviously, given what I've told you about Appeggio can give them, the same benefits, a fantastic ability to help their clients and customers, faster, quicker, cheaper, more reliable, build their return on investment and, their margin into their businesses. And it gives us, as Appeggio, a great network effect, because they're building, 5 things for 5 customers every month, as opposed to 1 thing for yourself, right? So that's the way we like to think about that. And, from a go-to-market perspective, that gives us the opportunity to run, a sort of standard affiliate program where those agencies can actually get a long-term revenue stream from the platform, as opposed to just having a point-in-time engagement model with a particular client. So that's a nice symbiotic relationship. The third customer group is enterprise. Now, if I go right back to the beginning of where we started, I said Appeggio was an enterprise grade, no-code citizen development platform. But we're not going to target enterprise as a customer segment, predominantly because, I've worked in some of the biggest banks in the world. I know how hard it is for small startup organizations to get a foot in the door in those organizations. You can be 9 months in the procurement process before, somebody gets a different job and you start again. Appeggio can be used by enterprise. It's enterprise specific, it's enterprise grade. And if enterprise want to buy Appeggio, that's fantastic. But we're not actively going to go and sell to enterprise.
Yeah. I mean, sales cycles 9 to 18 months.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with this type of product set going into an enterprise business, there's a lot of hoops you need to jump through, and let alone.
Yeah, so I really like the Atlassian example of the way that they sold to enterprise. They actually sold to the people in the enterprise that were going to get benefit from the product rather than the enterprise themselves. And I can't remember which founder it was at Atlassian, but one of them says this anecdote: the best thing that ever happened to them was the ability for them to accept credit card details, because what was occurring was now, the software engineering managers were putting in their corporate credit card details so that they could give Jira to their team. So it wasn't like the enterprise was buying the software. It was the SaaS platform. It was the actual engineering managers that were buying it for their developers. I resonate really, really with that, right? So I think Appeggio could have an entrance into the enterprise in exactly the same way. If we can give, marketing managers, product managers, business analysts, the ability to turn their ideas from, emails into working enterprise grade applications that they can actually deploy to their customers, or even just use as MVPs, or even just use as demonstration products to show the benefits, right? We're going to see adoption in that space really fast through that method. And that's the sort of, if you like, that's my thought process on how we'll get the best traction in enterprise.
I think that's an absolutely brilliant idea. Get into the heads of the people inside those large organizations, give them the tools that they need to be able to express their ideas. That's a huge opportunity. I think that would work really well as well. And that I think you've got that, if you will, that freemium model that you can basically build that prototype up until a certain point. We can sort of articulate what that point is, but I think that's fantastic. And so on that, right, so I think the models are basically looking at your small, your medium, and you've got your agency model at the moment, and then in the future, looking to get into enterprise with that growth strategy. I think is absolutely fantastic, and that's a great tip for anyone else out there marketing their platform. I think that's absolutely a brilliant idea. Get you tools to the actual people in the organization, target them, understand what they need, and how your tool can help that for their projects, their live projects or ideas. Absolutely fantastic. So are you planning to do any other sort of media to get the platform out there? Or is it literally you just pounding the pavements? Is there any other, I guess, strategies around that as well? Obviously, you've got quite the large network as well, which is a bonus. But is there anything else that you're doing?
Oh, look, we don't have a huge marketing budget, as you'd expect. A lot of our marketing from, and go to market will be viral activity that we can generate. I'm very lucky to have been around for 30 years. I've built up, nearly 15,000 connections on LinkedIn or whatever it is. I'll try and utilize that as much as I can, and to generate that initial push. Right. And, do as much, PR and sort of free marketing, for want of a better word, as I can. Because, at these early stages of any organization, it's about demonstrating traction and trying to get trying to get customer feedback and trying to get, that high quality adoption. So I'd much rather get that right, at a relatively small scale, organic sort of scale. And then once I can prove that, and once, we've got a really good customer base that, is engaged and using the tool, then potentially we can go harder and, raise additional capital for that sort of big push. The particularly difficult thing, I suppose, difficult and a great opportunity at the same time for Appeggio is a globally applicable platform, right? You can, you know, you can use it in Alaska the same way as you could use it in Melbourne, right? It's not, there's no, there is no geographical boundaries to it. It's 100% multilingual. It does right to left languages. It lives in an AWS cloud. So there is no geographical constraints to it, which what that means is, building, let's say we wanted to build, it's another reason for not going hard after enterprise. If I wanted to build an enterprise, business development team, I've now got to, have one in at least one person in every country.
Yeah.
That doesn't come cheap, right? So, so this is why we've got to think differently about the way that we bring the product to market.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that, physical teams are absolutely expensive, but then you've got to scale that as well. It's funny because it's a SaaS business, but yet you have to use brick and mortar strategy to be able to grow, which is insane if you think of it that way. There is literally no easy way to grow your SaaS business, is there? It literally is about everything that you've described. Yeah. And we can get into the nitty gritty of the how and what have you, but I think that's really good information just to help others along their journey as well. Let's talk go ahead, sorry.
So I was just going to say that, and that sort of plays into our pricing strategy as well, which is, we want as many people as possible to use the Appeggio and try the Appeggio product, right? We don't want any firewalls in the way. We don't want any, restricted ability to use the tool or anything like that. So, this is why we came up with the model of, it's completely free to use Appeggio to build anything and as many things as you like for as long as you like. Only at the point where you think you've got value from the tool and you want to actually deploy your application or your website, do you sign up for a subscription. So we're not going to charge you $20 per seat. We're not going to charge you, all that sort of stuff. We want to actually follow your value. If you create value, then you're going to be happy to pay us value. And that's the way we try and think about it. And we think this is, you've already seen over the last 6 months, the decline in SaaS revenues, but because of this, right? So, we really wanted to face into that hard, not because we were worried about that, but simply because we believed in the product. We don't want you to have to pay unless we've created value for you. And if you create value, then we think it's only fair that you pay us.
Absolutely brilliant. That's fantastic. That model is really what the future is, I dare say, as well. So you've definitely hit the head of the curve there as well. So then that's great. So when people sign up, I mean, your strategy, obviously you have a platform that's so scalable. It's again global, which is a great leg up of what you do. It could be a blessing, could be a curse, depending on where your customers come from. But the usual, I guess, process for you would be that someone could go onto the Appeggio, will get to the details of how to find you. But is your process naturally to then demonstrate the product to an end user? Is that what you tend to do? Is that your method at the moment, or is the platform to a point where it literally self-service and it doesn't really require a demonstration from you directly to be able to use it?
Well, while we're just finishing off our beta, the process that we've had so far is, we generally give people a quick tour around, get them used to the platform, and then let them go on their own. In the future, once we get out of that, there's no way we can scale that, right? That's just not even viable thinking about that, right? Yeah. So the future is all about making it completely self-serve, having it supported with great help materials and stuff. But my co-founder James came up with this brilliant point right back at the beginning, which was no code should also mean no knowledge.
Oh wow! Okay.
Right. So I should be able to come to Appeggio and use the platform without having to go through this huge training exercise and all the other stuff that goes with it. And I sort of use the analogy, which is, if you could use PowerPoint, you should be able to use Appeggio. Yeah. I mean, that's the level of sort of knowledge gap we want to get to, right? So that, it's a great example I always use, which is, um, other no-code tools, citizen developer tools. I want to build a little app for my sports team, right? So that I can, communicate with the kids or whatever it is, right? I go into one of the other tools. First thing I have to do is know I need a database.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now I have to go and build a database. Some call it a collection, others call it the database, but I have to build a database. That's what it is. I have to know what fields to put in the database. I have to know what types of fields they are. I have to know how to join tables together, et cetera, et cetera. Right. That's actually quite a lot of knowledge required there. Right. That's actually, the first week of a database, programming course, right? Right. So and then when I then build my app, I launch my app, and then somebody moves house or changes their phone number.
Yeah.
Right. How do I now know to be able to get back into the application to change the details? Right. So with some tools, I have to actually build a second app to point at the database of the first app to be able to edit the details in the database, right? So that scenario with Appeggio, we use that scenario with Appeggio as a sort of our yardstick. So look, what we wanted to get to was I come to Appeggio, I design my form, my front page. If I tell it this is an input field, we don't even have to tell it is an input field because you drag on an input field, but it's an input field. It should automatically create a database and a table with that input field in it. Yeah. Depending upon the validation type that I select, if it's an email or it's a number or whatever it is, just the same way as you would in Excel, it should tell the database what type of field it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then, so in that first example, I missed a stage actually. What I have to do is I have to go in and build my website and my fields, and then I have to link all my fields to my database tables, right?
Yeah.
But why do that, right? I'm putting a thing here. If I create the field when I pull the thing on, I've already linked it. I already know what it is. That's the way that Appeggio is supposed to work. So we reduce that level of knowledge. And then when you build your application in Appeggio, it should be smart enough to know that you're going to want to change the data in it at some point in time. So it should give me it should automatically build for me a set of admin screens. So all of your CRUD functions, create, replicate, update, and delete, right? Those are because as Appeggio, we know you're going to need those. It's like, that's just a no-brainer. We know exactly what you've done. So why couldn't we just create those for you? And so that's the sort of the level of knowledge we're trying to put into the platform. And I talk about it being, taking that 30 years worth of being burnt, right? So you wanted 10 people to use the website at once. Okay. Right. and putting that hardcore software engineering into the platform and making it the way that you, I dare to make this comparison, but this is the difference, between your Apple device and your Android device, right? It's, your Apple device just works. You don't have to know anything about it. Your Android devices, you've got 14 different ways to do the same thing, and you've got to configure it, right? So super powerful if you know what you're doing. But if you're like me and you just want to get on with stuff, then your Apple device just works. Yeah. Right. And that's the way we've tried to think about Appeggio. I mean, if we can get even 10% of the way close to as good as Apple, we'd be very happy.
That's absolutely brilliant. And that was my question about the future plans and vision as well. So what do you see Appeggio? Any upcoming features? I guess that's another question we need to touch on. So self-service onboarding would be one of the future plans as well. But two questions that I think is quite broad in nature, but upcoming features and also the long-term vision for Appeggio.
So features is an interesting one, right? Because again, I'll talk about the no-code market for a second. So what there's a term that's emerged in the sort of no-code community as a full-stack no-code developer. And my brain hurts at that point because I go, hang on, how can you be a full stack no code developer? And what I've worked out that actually means is I can use product A for the front end, product B for the middle tier, product C for the database, and product D for something else, right? And they bolt all of these products together to make an end-to-end experience, right? Of course, if you're building an experience and service platform like Appeggio, you can't do that, right? It's one thing. Right, you've got to have just one. So inside Appeggio, we've got the front end builder, we've got an inbuilt content management system that's multilingual, right to left. We've got an inbuilt process engine, function builder. It automatically creates databases, enterprise grade databases for you, handles the whole thing from back to front. So getting all that to work seamlessly is the critical key, and that's what we've been trying to do. But also make it so simple to use, right? So do all that stuff, which is actually quite complicated and technical. I mean, I sort of use another example from another product, which is, so when you start using this, the first thing you need to do is instantiate your Firebase connection. And I'm like, what? What is one of those, let alone how am I going to do it, right? So, we've got to make it so simple that it's literally click, go, deploy. And that's it. Now, the next evolution of that, though, and this is where the sort of coming features come from, is possibly the most exciting part, which is if you think about what I described as Appeggio, which is this sort of visual designer that enables you to write or generate code. How cool would it be if we could actually incorporate AI interface on the front of that, so that you could narratively, whether it be voice or language, actually describe what it was you wanted. Now, the problem that you've got with AI at the moment, AI code generation at the moment, is it fits into that same camp that the big end of town fits into, because really it's a developer acceleration tool, because I need to know what to ask for, so I need to know what prompt to write. Once it's written some code for me, I need to know whether it's any good or not, right? Yeah. Right. I need to be able to test it, and then I've got some more, and then I've got this lovely code. What am I going to do with it? I've got to deploy it. So I've now got to understand how that works, right? So the beauty of Appeggio is because if we take all of that hardcore software engineering that I talked about, at the moment we've got a visual editor on the front of it. How cool would that be if we could augment that with a text or a language-based editor on top of that? So that you get all the benefits of all that hardcore software engineering, and you get the benefits of speed and simplicity of the AI front end that comes along with it. And that is the real key. Now, because, now we're talking, now we've just gone not 10x, we've now gone 100x, right, in the ability to create stuff really fast. But it all comes back to those non-functionals. Everything's useless unless you get the non-functionals right. And that's the thing that we've been so careful to get right with Appeggio.
Absolutely brilliant. How far do you think that is in the future, Alex? That is a very exciting.
Look, we've got early prototypes of that now. Right. So look, it's the key thing is it's a bit like an iceberg. I always talk about icebergs and everything, really, right? So most startups start from the bit you can see above the waterline of an iceberg. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And this is what we did at Judo. I mean, with Judo, we started building from under the water first, right? Everything, we built our own, all of the Zero Trust Network was the first thing we actually commissioned provided for us was a Zero Trust Network system. There's probably, I don't know, but I would guess there's probably still not another bank in the world that has an end-to-end Zero Trust Network that runs all of their systems. And that's so far buried under the water, right, that most people wouldn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Right. So the same thing we did with, but what that meant was, as you've built all that stuff under the water, when you get to the top, the bit above the water is actually the easy bit, right? And it's like, it's like having this huge, great Lego kit. Now you've got all the Lego pieces, and you just need to bolt them together, right? Now I always, it's always a little bit tongue in cheek that, but it's the same thing goes with Appeggio. We've built all of the stuff under the water first, all of the stuff that nobody sees, all of the stuff that nobody cares about, all of the stuff nobody asks for. And so putting, if you like, that AI layer on the top of it to enable you to use that stuff is relatively simple. It's less about the technology, and it's more about how we allow people to interact with it. That's the harder bit. It's the experience process. That's the harder bit, right? It's a bit like the whole story with AI at the moment. It's all about prompt engineering, right? It's, how do I, and that's the same thing for Appeggio. It's how do I get you to write the right prompts without having to take you through a course or give you a cheat sheet, right? That's the key from here.
It's very exciting. Very exciting. I like the Lego analogy. The iceberg analogy is fantastic, starting from under the water up. The Lego is great because I also think about, it's great. You've got the picture of what you need to build, and you've got the blocks to build it, right? So you've got the picture, which is the front, and then you've got the blocks, which is, I guess, fundamental in the middle. But underneath that, you still need to manufacture the blocks, the back end that you don't see, the invisible, right? So that's another great analogy as well. But that's really good. And I will ask, this is probably a big one before we get to the last part is, I think you said it at the very start, the two most important things, but I'll ask this question then. And what advice would you give for those aspiring entrepreneurs that are in the midst of building their own platform as well? What's the, I guess, and narrow it down, perhaps, what's the one piece of advice you wish you knew? It's hard to say. 30 years worth of being knocked around and as you said, burnt to be able to get to where you are now. But for you to get through that, what's the one piece of advice you could pass on that you wish you knew?
Oh, I wish I understood then how much pressure, anxiety, strain the process puts on your family.
Wow. Okay.
It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not a job that's going to bring you a paycheck every month. It's not a job that you can easily switch off from. I know there aren't many jobs that you can easily switch off from these days, but the level of ambiguity, uncertainty, and risk is enormous. And it's okay for you to be accepting of that. It's much harder for your family to be accepting of that. And that puts a lot of strain on you. Doubles, if not quadruples the amount of strain on you, because everybody wants to do right by their family. Everybody wants to help them and see them be, happy and thrive. Startup life you have to think about that element of stuff for your family. This isn't just my own experience. I've helped a lot of other founders, and both as just a friend and as an advisor and other bits and pieces. And I see the same thing every day. And yes, it can feel very glamorous, and yes, it can. I'm a founder. I've raised this amount of money, but it is the amount of pressure that it puts on you is enormous. I always liken it to taking business trips on airplanes. Everybody thinks, I'm, particularly in Australia, I'm flying to Europe for business, right? This is very glamorous, and right after you got on the 5th airplane.
Oh, yeah.
and sat in a silver tube at 10,000 feet for 14 hours eating rubbish after being delayed in some dodgy airport somewhere or another. You realise it's not very glamorous, and I've spent millions of hours or millions of miles in airplanes over my career, and it's one of the worst things in the world. And it's the same thing goes with founders. So you have to, that whole thing, there's some good sides to it, and there's some benefits and bits and pieces, but there's also there's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of cons that come along with it, and you have to be accepting of those, and as I say, you have to be able to manage and accept those for your family as well.
That's a big one, isn't it? Really, me being 2 kids, and also on the journey of growing our video marketing agency, big strain. Right, being my business partner is my wife as well, and we're both talented, we're both headstrong, but navigating that is really difficult. And we all set out the goals to do things to be able to empower our family, but then during that journey, it's almost like, well, you've got to somehow balance that, and that's a big challenge, and that's a very good one to consider. So really, the advice then you would give is like, you wish you knew that with the younger version of yourself, and would that have changed what you did?
It probably would never have changed what I did, but it would definitely have changed how I did it.
There we go. And how would you have done it differently, just out of curiosity?
Oh, I mean, I would have had a lot more conversations with my wife. I would have, been more understanding of the demands that it puts on the family, rather than focusing on the demands it puts on you, and also really carving out specific blocks of time. Silly example, but you've got to be absolutely brutally diligent with the time that you give the family, and not just the time that you're at home, but the amount of presence that you have when you're at home. I mean, I've looked back on my 30 years, and I can say quite comfortably there's been times I've been physically at home and mentally somewhere else. A lot of the time, right? And that's hard. I've had family holidays where I've spent 11 hours a day on the email, on voice calls, on bits and pieces, right? And at the time, it was the most important thing in the world, and it had to be done. When now I look back on it now, I could have dealt with those differently if I'd worked it out.
There we have it.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to.
But it's tough.
Decisions.
Because
it is like that is your world, and that everything revolves around it. But then it's really interesting when you do look back and think, maybe that could have been something I did differently. So and thank you so much for sharing that, because that is the raw truth about a SaaS business and launching and the raw truth. And that's the reason why Appeggio has its strength as well, right? Because of that, looking back and how you've done things in that 30 years with being burnt, and then being able to build a platform that alleviates a lot of those pains that you experience. And then now moving forward, you've built this business that you've got those concepts in place as well. So thanks so much for sharing that. So it's at this end. So for those who are listening, what we're doing next is we'll be actually doing a demo of the platform of Appeggio itself. And so there'll be a link in the description for you to be able to access the demo. So if you want to see Appeggio in action, we'll be building up maybe a light use case. We'll come up with something that would basically articulate what Appeggio can do. And so I suggest follow that link to be able to access the demo. And but before we get onto that, how best can people find you, Alex? Perhaps if you'd like to spell out the website to make sure people can go directly on there as well, because it's a tricky one to spell. So.
Yes. Thanks ever so much for that, Adam. It's appeggio.com, Appeggio. So app, Appeggio. So if you think of arpeggio as the musical notes, a collection of musical notes, we call it Appeggio because it's a collection of visual items that come together in the same way you're a collection of notes. So that was James's incredible contribution to that one. So that's how it all works. So APPEGGIO.com, Appeggio.com.
And how do people find you as well, Alex?
Oh, look, you can always find me on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn / Alex Twigg. You can all find me there. Easy to search me on that. Or just send me an email to alex@appeggio.com.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much for that. And so that concludes listening to the podcast. And now for those, of course, who are viewing, we'll basically just dive on into the actual demonstration itself. So thanks so much for those who are listening, and I definitely recommend check out the actual demo of the platform. And from there, you'll be able to experience what Appeggio is like and what it could do for you. And from there, you can even sign up to it yourself. And so that will conclude it. So thanks so much, and we'll see you on the demonstration.
Brilliant. Thanks, Adam. Looking forward to it.
Cheers. All right, so welcome back, and now we've got Alex here. We have Appeggio. The application is open, and what we'd like to do is go ahead and get Alex to run through the demonstration, and from there we could really see what Appeggio is about. And you could already see the screen here, and I'll just hand over the microphone to Alex to go through.
Great, thanks, Adam. Look, there's loads I could demo today about Appeggio, but for time-wise, I'm just going to try and cover off all of the key features and give you a flavour of the sort of power of Appeggio. Excuse me. So I give you a flavour of the power of Appeggio, as we go through, you'll see that we've got the main editor page here. I won't talk you through that in detail at the moment. I'll try and talk you through the parts as we go through the process, trying to sort of keep the time down.
Perfect.
So, as we said in the conversation earlier on, Appeggio is about creating websites and apps all from the same effort. And the first thing you're going to need to do probably is just create a new page. So I'm going to come over here, click on the new page button, and you've got a very simple wizard type model to go through. Everything in Appeggio is designed to do all of the heavy lifting for you. So you can create a perfect path for SEO perspective. This will be a URL later on, so I'll call it my demo. You can give the page a title, again for every SEO purposes, my demo page. You can give it a description, so all the stuff that Google will search for, my first demo to Adam. And also you can add any keywords, so demo, Appeggio, video. Okay. Now you can change all of these at any point in time as you want as you go through, but you can start off with that process as well. Below this, you've got things that might be different about that page, so the users that might look at that page. So at the moment we've just got visitor selected, but I could be a registered user to have to view this page, or I could be an administrator to have to view these pages. There's actually a load more categories that you can have, but we'll just keep it as a visitor for time being. And to keep things really simple and easy for people, you can make it default to have your default headers and footers. You can choose those as we go, but for the demo purposes, I'm just going to say none to keep it nice and clean, and hit go. So now we've got a brand new fresh page, if I'm going to want to put some stuff on that page, now on the left hand side here, you can see we've got a whole host of things that we can add to the page. Everything from full pages all the way down to base parts, as we call them. Now I'm going to go have a quick look at the base parts for a second. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds of base parts that you can use and look at. And we can go in here and, let's just, for example, pick button, right? And we've created as many button types as we can possibly think of for you that you can choose from and add to your page. However, we expect that not many people actually go down and use the base parts, because although you can, we've done a whole lot of stuff for you up front. So I might come down here and click on full pages, and we've got selections of ranges of home pages, product pages, all the other stuff you do. But for the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to click on page sections. Now, let's think of what we might want to do. So let's look at our hero sections. Here they are. There's a whole host of hero sections to choose from, all being pre-designed, all fully responsive. But I actually will carry on down. There's a very cool Elvis-looking dude here. Obviously, I'm not quite old enough to know to the original Elvis, but we'll carry on from there. And simply adding that to the page is as easy as clicking on the button. It will take a second to do it. But there we go. We've added our first thing to the page. And you can see it's got all the effects on there. You've got this glass effect on the bottom here, and it's all ready to go. Now, that on its own is quite cool, but we want to do some other stuff. So let's put some content on the page. I'm going to scroll down to, I don't know, again, so many different types of content that you could have, or different settings. But here's a two-column text layout. Now that's quite an interesting one, because we've got a big image on, so we'd want text. This two-column text layout would be quite nice to have here. But I'm worried that might look a bit odd on a mobile view. So if I come up to the top here, you can see that I've got all these different screen sizes, everything from the smallest mobile device up to a 4K TV. If I click on that, you'll see even in the in this mode, it will actually show me how that component would respond and react in a mobile view, tablet view, laptop view, desktop view, small desktop, all the way up to 4K TV. And I'm going back to the edit view. So you're not just looking at your pages responsibly, you're actually looking at all the sections and components responsibly. So I'm going to add that one to the page as well. You can see it's tucked it down nicely at the bottom here. And just for argument's sake, let's go down testimonials. That's always a good one to have. Again, huge amount of testimonials. I am going to pick, I don't know, let's pick a good one. Here we go. There's a nice one with some nice cards and pictures on. So let's click on that testimonial at the bottom. There we go. And there we go. It's now added it to the bottom of the page. So you can see I've created a page literally in 30 seconds. And but the padding looks a bit, it looks a bit close together at the bottom there. So I'm going to click on the container here. You can see I get these orange highlights showing me what parts and sections I'm on. If I look over here on the right-hand side, look at spacing. I want the top spacing, and I don't know, I'm going to make it 8. As I come down, you'll see that it's now added a bit more space in between those two sections for me. And it's as easy as that to design what you want to do and create what you've got. You've got padding and margin on this particular menu. So that's all good. But let's say, adding stuff is easy. But, I want to obviously change the text and move on forward from there. So everything in Appeggio is WYSIWYG. You just go in, type what you want, and away you go. There's nothing else to do. Although every edit that I make here automatically goes into the content management system. So I don't have to go into the content management system, update it there, and then put it on the page. I can do that if I want to, but we think it's much better that most people are just going to want to edit it directly on the page.
It'd be great to see how that looks as well. The content management system, or the CMS. How to go into that section. I'm not sure whether we'll see that, but yeah, that'll be great to see that too. And just to comment about the padding and the way you can see the margins and guidelines, I think that's a brilliant feature. A lot of editors are very hard to navigate between, the actual margins of the padding and the containers and the containers within containers. But you can see how fast that responds when you hover the mouse over. You can obviously see which section each component belongs in, which is so far absolutely love it so far.
Brilliant, thank you, mate. And it's just as easy to change images. So I've got a lady down here in this image. I can come over here, click on image, and if I wanted to change it, I can change it for any of these images and go. That's as hard or as difficult as it's going to be. I could even, if I wanted to, choose another image. I could upload an image. I could even come here and modify my image. And we'll show you how to do that a bit later on. So that's really straightforward. You can see I've literally built a page, edited it, changed the look and feel of it within a minute. And you could repeat that process as many times as you like, for as many pages as you want, and you could have a website up and running literally in 10 minutes. So that's part one. Again, if I come over here and click on my mobile view, you can see it does all the right things. It's changed everything to be responsive. But more than that, as I click through here, you'll see that actually it's not just rescaling things, it's actually changing all my breakpoints. It's changing the text sizes to be more appropriate for the screen size. And it's doing all of that for you automatically in the background. You never have to touch anything. You can. You have complete control over absolutely everything. So if you want to change the breakpoints manually yourself, you can, but there's no need to.
So those breakpoints, Alex, between, so for example, if you go into the mobile, you can make and alter the content for that specific device as well? Yep,
absolutely. So let's go over here. If I went to spacing again, you can actually see up the top here, look, you've got all the different screen sizes. So the way it works is it goes from it goes from the one you selected up. So at the moment we've selected mobile view up, but if I only wanted to change the breakpoints differently from from laptop view up, I'd click on that button and change it.
Brilliant feature. I haven't seen that in any other editor. That's fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Cool. So we've done that. Now let's have a look at other stuff that you might want to change. Everybody wants to have their own brand, look and feel, even through to their own entire design systems. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of flavour of how Appeggio can handle all of that. Now, if you look down this page that we've created, you'll see the buttons here. I've got this blue accent to them, and that's actually our. Or for this, we use that as the primary colour of all of the default sections that we have. So if I come down here to our settings, go themes and colours, and I change our primary colour, I don't know, let's make it a green colour over here. You'll also notice that I can I can have a dark theme as well for my app. I won't bother playing with that now, but you can have both. And you'll see automatically those buttons, because they were set in the design system, turned green. Right. So everything that was a primary color in your design system for the app will now be green. You don't need to go and change that individually through things, but it's a really powerful tool, and I'll show you how you can actually start to set up your own design systems as well as using the default ones in a second. But if I come across here to fonts, you can obviously do the same thing with fonts. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to change the secondary font. Let's make it something that you will see is different. Let's call it Acme. There we go. So we've now got a predominantly different font to the ones that set as the primary font. You can have 4 fonts. 4 fonts is probably more than enough. If you're starting to get into 5 or 6 fonts, your site's going to look a bit ugly. So we basically you're probably only ever going to use primary and secondary, and probably an accent font or something for your terms and conditions. But let's use that. You can also come down here and set all your text sizes so that they will flow through as well. I'm not going to do that now because it will just make everything look a bit rubbish. I'm not a designer. So we've done that. So I've changed our secondary font. Now if I come down here and I click on our first bullet point in the list, you can see it's selected as a piece of text on the side, which is good. And I'm going to come to font, and I'm going to go, I want our secondary font, and there you can see it's changed our font to our secondary font. I could come here, change the size of it, I could change the weight of it, underline it, decorations, all that sort of stuff, but we won't do that right now. But what I will do is I'll come back here and I'll change the colour of it, and let's say I want it to be our nice primary green colour that we selected a minute ago. So now that's cool. So we've now changed all of that, but it's you might want that to flow through to the rest of your application in some way. So you'll notice on the right hand side here we've got a couple of tabs. We've got this instance tab that talks about the particular thing you've clicked on, or I can go to the master tab, and now we can start to add our own design system. So if I look on the list here, you'll see there's a whole bunch of masters that we've pre-created for stuff, and those are the ones that flow through from the templates. But now I'm going to create Alex's master, give it a name, and you can see at the top here we've got a little orange badge. What that means is now we've clicked on that component, we always know that there's a master associated with that component. Now, if I scroll down, let's click on this text that we had at the bottom. You can see there's no master associated with it. So I'm now going to come to my list. Look, there's my Alex master at the bottom of the list now. Click on that. And as if by magic, all of the text has changed to that green color. You'll notice not just the one card I clicked on, but because that card is actually, or those collection of cards is actually generated from a database, it's a repetition of those cards. So it's actually changed that detail across all of the cards. So you can see it's really fast to start to generate your own brand look and feel. And I've just done simple things like colors and fonts and text sizes. But you could have button radiuses, button styles, anything and everything that you could want to potentially change in an application, you can set a master for and have that flow through your application. So, if you're creating a white label application that you want to be able to, deliver in 10 different brands, you could literally do that build that one app and change your masters. In 10 minutes, you've got 10 different versions. That's the way it works. So we did that for text. But I'm not perfect, and we can always make mistakes. So I might not want to do that. So if I come up here to edit, you can see I've got I can click undo, and it's undone. Right? I can actually that undo stack is infinite, so I can keep undoing backwards and forwards. And you've got all your control keys as well, so I can do Control Z for undo. I can duplicate, copy, do all the stuff, move left, right, do all the stuff that you want to do from the keyboard as well, so that you've got all of that control as you get quicker and quicker at using the tool. So now you can build a form, you can set masters for it, you can create a whole brand, and you can do your normal editing processes. So what we're going to do now is we are going to think about what would happen if I've got registered users that want to see a different version of my site, or if I've got admin users that need to be able to control different things in the back end of my site. So let's go to a homepage I created earlier. You can see here, look, those green colours have flowed through to my primary button, so I'm not joking. It all flows through, and I've got this standard sort of top nav here with a sign up button on it. And that's the type of thing you'd have as a visitor coming to look at your site. So if I click on the sign up button, there's all the details I have about it. But you'll notice up here next to the screen sizes, I've also got a role button. So if I click on role and I click on registered users, all of a sudden that sign up button has become a log out button, right? Because it understands now what state I want to view the application in, and actually I can use the same builder to build different forms on the same page. So I can actually have I could make this, if I didn't want the chap in the smiley chap there for a registered user, I could actually make him visible or invisible based upon his role type.
So Alex, just to butt in right here. So what you're telling me is that you can live impersonate different roles, and it fundamentally is a different instance based on that particular user role. Is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
Exactly right.
Wow. Okay, that's very impressive.
And as you look up this list here, we've got administrators, editors, super administrators, owners. Let's say if you had a process whereby you had somebody that built sites for you, but then you had a content editor that you wanted to be able to come along and edit the content, but you didn't want them to be able to change the design of the application. You could do that too, right? So you've got all sorts of, let's call it, workflow controls in the editor, as well as when these go live, they actually control who can access those pages as well. So that's roles. So let's now think about.
So just to go backwards, so if you were to select anonymous, the use case for that would be that's pretty much the front end, the website.
Yeah. So if I click anonymous, it just comes back to I'm a visitor, anonymous visitor coming to the website.
And this would be almost like you would argue the homepage, and then you would edit this to be the homepage, and then all of a sudden you can create the whole user flow. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
But we talked about text, we've talked about moving it around, we've talked about images and all that sort of stuff. But there's a whole host of media that you're going to want to play with and add to your pages and to your apps. So I'm going to click on our smiley chap again here, and I'm going to look at image. This is what we saw before. And if I wanted to, I could simply click on this lovely blue cupcake here, and I could change him to the blue cupcake. But I won't do that for the second, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and modify the image. So within the tool itself, you've got, the ability to come in, scale your images, rotate them, flip them, do all the stuff that you'd want to do with them, save it as a new image, all that sort of stuff. So you've got, probably 70 or 80% of the basic graphical editor features you'll need to put this stuff into the website. You're not going to have a full, a full editing suite, but you've got pretty much everything that most people will need to get going, and directly at fingertips inside the app. So that's there. While we're looking at our old friend, the smiley guy. There's also something else to show you quickly. One of the things that we're building in background, this isn't finished yet, but this is sort of an early look-see, is we're trying to build a large language model into the back of Appeggio. And Appeggio is actually built on and you might, for the technical folk amongst you, you might have noticed this in places. We actually built the middle of this application in Lisp, so that, and for those that know, Lisp was probably one of the first AI languages to be created. But what that does is gives us enormous power to the way that you can manipulate stuff. Now, at the top here, you see I've clicked into this function builder at the top. Where let's think of it as the command line that you're talking about, that you'd sort of use other places. There is actually a little microphone button here. And if we weren't doing the demo in this way, I could actually click on that and I could talk to Appeggio as well. But I'm not going to do that for the demo. I'm just going to show you how you can use natural language to do things. So you can see I've clicked on this button down here, this action button. And if I wanted to say, makes that work, background color, and I wanted to say red.
Wow.
Yeah. I can now obviously you can tell we haven't quite got the language model right yet, because I'm still having to use the technical BG color for the narrative, but that's one of the easiest things to get right as we go forward. What you'll actually be able to do now is actually start to talk to Appeggio and say, I want a 3-card row using the data from desserts.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Unheard of. So obviously in beta at the moment, but I'm assuming once it's released, you'll be able to literally have conversations, just telling it what you want to build, and it'll just deploy.
Yeah.
Or create the actual containers with the.
Yeah, absolutely. And the real cool thing here is, I think we mentioned it in the earlier conversation. Everybody talks about AI, being able to create and write code. The problem with that, though, is that it's a bit like some low-code tools that exist today, which are really developer acceleration tools. You have to be a developer to know what to ask it. So you have to be a developer to know how to prompt it. Then you have to be a developer to understand whether what it's written is correct. And then you have to be a developer to actually take what it's written and deploy it somewhere. Right? Now, what we've done with Appeggio is this, which is Appeggio does all that for you in the background. It does all that hardcore engineering stuff. So what we can do with Appeggio is use natural language to ask the prompt, to create the prompts. And Appeggio in the background then translates those prompts into code, and translates that code into the stuff that you need for hardcore engineering. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the best of AI, large language models, and you get the power of the no-code tool that sits beneath it. So, we're actually trying to release the power of AI, not to developers are using, AI to help them prompt and write their code. We're actually allowing completely non-technical folk to use AI to generate hardcore code that probably even most developers would take a time to write, because it handles all the non-functional stuff. It handles security, performance, resilience, scalability, all of that stuff happens without you having to know you even had to ask for it. And that's the real key.
That's absolutely brilliant. When that release comes out, it'd be interesting, because I think for the most part, there's websites out there that you would have enter in natural language to build a basic layout of a website. But then if you get down to the component level, that's really where it ends.
That's right.
Whereas with this, you can actually technically create the components with natural language without having to know any of the back-end words. I mean, BG is still obvious to us, but again, to someone potentially in a marketing team can now build their own applications, might not know the word BG color in one word without any spaces. But then once that's been fixed up, and the use cases are immense with this, and the amount of people that will be able to access to build their own applications is also immense as well.
Yeah, thank you. We think it's got a lot of potential, and it's super cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. So now we've we've edited our images, but actually everything we've done so far has been relatively static. What happens if we want to, drive our content or drive our images from a database or from, so that we've got dynamic content? Well, we can do that as well. So we come over here, click on the database icon. There's a few that we've sort of got in here as demo ones. Now, of course, you can come up to the top here, create a whole new one if we want to. But for the purpose of the demo, I'm going to pick up on my old favorite, our desserts database. And here it is. You can see if I go to the bottom, I can start to add new rows simply by clicking in this thing here if I want to. And you can see, it's able to handle images, icons, URLs, numbers, anything you want. There's no restrictions to the type of fields you can have. But the interesting thing, and we talked about the content management system earlier on. Well, this is a good way to look into the content management system, because you don't actually ever have to go into the content management system. Appeggio handles it all for you in the background. Now, if you look here, you can see, obviously, I've got these images. But if I hit show raw at the top here, you can see now what it's going to show me is actually the path that Appeggio uses to go and find that content. So this is where all the content resides inside the content management system, and so we give the ability for you to see it, and you can choose it later on if you want to. But 99 times out of 100, people are just going to want to see the actual things that are there. Now, if I've created a database, people have added stuff to it, I can always come up here and export it as an Excel file or a spreadsheet or whatever I want. But that is pretty straightforward to do, and but now I've got some data in a database, but I actually want to use it, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to close this down quickly, just for the purposes of the demo. I am going to, oops, sorry, I clicked the wrong button there. Let's go back and do that again. I'm going to create a new page. So I'm going to do what I'm going to. Demo 2. I'm just going to make some stuff up this time because you've seen me do that before. We don't want any headers, we don't want any footers, and I'm going to go. So now we've got our fresh page again. I'm going to go back to databases. I'm going to go back to my old favorite desserts. And you'll notice up here there's a little button that says add to page. Now this shows me, the structure of the database. I'm not going to want to use the UID for it. I'm probably not going to want to put the created stamp time on it or the text color that I've got there, so I can select what columns I want to put on the page. This SKU information that I have about my desserts, I don't actually want at the front. I'm going to move that all the way down to the end. There we go. So it's the very last thing you'll see in the list. So I can change what columns I use. I can change the column order, and then here you can see how I can put them on the screen. So this example, I'm just going to put them on the screen as a card row. Hit go. Bang.
Wow.
Right.
Yep.
It's put them on a page to the card row. Appeggio has done the smarts in the background and go, well, my cards have got pictures. So I'm going to take the image that was in that database. I'm going to put it where the image on the card's supposed to be. I've looked at the field names of those things, and I've seen that, there's a field name called title. So I'm going to put that as the title of my card, and I'm going to put the description there's a lot of text here. So I've reckoned that's the description, and I'm going to bung everything else underneath, right? But you'll also notice it's done smart things like it's lined up all my action buttons. I mean, how many hours have we all wasted trying to get our action buttons lined up, right? How many hours have we all waited trying to make sure that everything is evenly spaced, right? Appeggio just does that for you in the background. It doesn't mess about. Now, for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to do a quick Control-Z. To refresh that page. I'm going to go back to our database again. I'm going to add it to the page again. I won't bother changing all the fields again because you've seen me do that. But this time I'm going to add it as an input form. Now I've got an input form where I can actually get customers to start adding information to my database.
Wow, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yep.
Okay. It's pre-connected. I don't have to go and join everything together and tell it what I want. You know, obviously I can come here and style my form the way I want it styled, but, you know, it's done all the hard yards for me. Right? I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to do Control Z just to clear it off.
So you're telling me that I could input form a donut and then have 0 calories and 0 fat on the
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, done.
My kinds of donuts. So we're going to do it one more time. I'm going to add it again. This time I'm just going to do it as a raw table. You know, you might want admin users, or you might want to create an admin view of your data in your database. Bish, there you go. It's created as a raw table. And it's given you a zebra pattern automatically as a style that's used. So you don't even have to think about that. Right, of course I can come in here, I can resize stuff, I can, change text and colors and all the other stuff that you'd expect. But again, it's done all the hard yards for you, it's connected it to the database. You change it to the database, it will change here, you change it here, it will change in the database.
Brilliant.
Great, so we've done all that. Now, I'm going to do the same thing again, I'm just going to do a Control Z. And I'm actually going to do this one more time to show you something that's quite clever. I'm going to add it to the page. I'm not going to bother with the things again. I'm just going to add it as a card row. So I've got all our cards again. But, if I go to the mobile view, it now shows me how everything will work responsively. But also notice if I go right to the end here and go on my 4K display, it's now given me 4 cards across as opposed to 3 cards across, right? So it knows how to make this. Obviously, it's compressed the screen so that we can see it here. But everything from that mobile view all the way up to a 4K TV, without you having to think, just does it automatically for you.
Yeah, that's been a big limitation of mine when I've been using editors, that you cannot define the resolution that you'd like to edit on. Therefore, for me, it's like, I've bought a 4K screen with the assumption is I should buy, obviously the best has the most pixels, and that way I can always scale it backwards. But you can actually upscale it to be able to get the right settings and you as a breakpoint. It's fantastic.
It works pretty well. Pretty pleased with that. Now what we've done there is we've created a database and we've created content dynamically from that. But, perhaps I might not have the data. Perhaps I want to build my design first and then apply my data to it. So let's go back to our home screen with our smiley chap again. So I'm going to click on my smiley chap. I'm going to use, there's 2 buttons here. There's up and down button navigation here. So I find you can try and click exactly on the right spot, but I find if you use this button, you can actually navigate up and down much easier and make sure you find the right one. So I've now got my card part up here, which is great. But you'll notice here it says repeat with data. So if I click on that, I've now got a list of all of the databases that I've got available to me. I'm going to click on our old favorite desserts again. Bosh. Now it's repeated that card for every line item in the desserts table. Okay. Which is good. Does not help him very much because I can't see the data in there yet. But if I now click on our smiley man and click over here on image, you'll notice up top here it's got a little database icon. Click on that. Now it knows I'm in the desserts database because that's the one it's done the repeat on. And I click image, and there you go.
Wow. Yep.
Right. So I could do the same thing for my text. So if I go over here, text, database, name, and so on. Right. I just repeat that process as many times as I like so that I can actually create things the way I want it. And again, you can see it's all scaled it nicely. It's moved all the action buttons up. It's done all the stuff it needs to do automatically for you. And you can see over here that I can actually we've driven it from data this time. but I could also drive it by a function, or I could drive it by the state of the application. And I'll show you a bit more about that later on. But you can see absolutely everything down to the smallest part or component can be dynamic based upon anything that's occurring either in your application or on the device that the customer's using, or on any data you get back from an API, or any data that exists in your own database.
Brilliant. Yep.
Right, so we mentioned functions a minute ago. So let's have a look and see what we can do with functions. So over here on the left-hand side, we've got a little function icon. And you'll notice there is a huge list of functions down here that are baked into the tool. Everything from simple maths functions, logic functions, text functions, security function. It's here and available to you to use. And as I said, not just about the state of your application, but it could be about the state of the device that I'm using. So just to keep things really simple for now, I'm going to select on this one is light mode. And of course, like I did with my databases, so I can come up here and give it a name, I can categorize it, all that sort of stuff. I won't do that now for the demo, but you can see, it's given me a function is light mode. And there's a run button down the bottom here. If I click on run, my Mac's sat in light mode, so it's given me a true response.
Wow.
And that's the simplest level of function, and that's based upon my device. Cool. Okay, so Alex, that's great. We can do that. But what about if I just want to add some numbers together? So let's come down here, hit add. This time it's given me two input boxes because it knows that I've got to add something together, so it needs two things. So for the purpose of the demo, I'm just going to keep it really simple. 1 + 1, hit run, and there's my answer, 2. Right? Now, you'll notice on the side here, though, I could actually choose a function to go and get my first input field from, or I could choose a state to go and get my first input function from, right? So I can actually start to create nested functions to do complex things. I won't take you through those now because we'll be here all day, but you can see how that can become really powerful if I want to actually start to create quite complex functions and save them to be reused anywhere that I like inside my application. That probably takes me on to the next part of the section, which is about processes. Now I can go straight onto these. I'll just make sure I find my cursor again. There we go. Now processes. Basically, processes are a collection of functions and actions together, right? So if I click on processes, you'll see up here, there's one I made earlier, which is a geolocation function. I made this one for the demo so that you can actually start to see how we can manipulate data and we can call APIs. So what this process does is it goes away and it checks my IP address. It then calls an external API and gets back the longitude and latitude information for that IP address. Then hands that data to a Google Map component, and the Google Map component will display it on the screen. So, but all of that I've described as a simple flowchart. You can see here there's an error state. So if the API doesn't come back with something, we want it to be able to do something later on. And Appeggio will never allow you to have an orphan error state. It will always force you to have an error state. It makes sure that goes through. But if I come over here to the get API, so the get IP, you can see this is my API call. It's using our own internal function. Sorry, I've clicked on the wrong one there. Get geo, there we go. It's using our own internal function, get from API. So get or put, those functions are all there. I've managed to create here the stuff, the URL that I need to go and take for that API, and I've given it headers and footers and all the sort of stuff that I need for that API. Right. There's also a manual tab here. If I want to click on that, I can also see the code that is generated for that to go and request that API. And if I wanted to, I could come here and manually edit that code as well. And if I manually edited it, it would actually also flow back to the visual editor as well. So it's bi-directional in the way I want to do it. So that if you're comfortable using the visual editor, and that helps you sort of step through the process of how you do this stuff, that's great. If you're a super user and you can just go in and go for your life, you can use the manual editor too. So it's a nice way to debug stuff. And most people know how to build a flowchart, right? If I come here, I can click this button. I'll just add another process step. If I want to have a new choice in there, I'll click that button, and you just build out your editor. And of course, I can come down here, select that, and delete any as I go through. So you can do that whole process. Now, to prove that actually does something, I have come here and previously built a couple of pages. This first page, the where page, actually shows you all of the raw request and the raw return information I got for each of those steps. And you can see it's given that to the map, and it's created the map, right? So that's in your true application, you aren't going to want to see all that detail. But put it on this page so that you can see what it was doing at every step. And if I come here to example process, you can see that in this version, I've edited out a lot of the request information. I've just given you the return information so that you can actually prove that it all works. And there you are. That was actually quite a good example there. You could see that the Google map loaded last. Everything in Appeggio is designed to be smart. So everything, unless you tell it otherwise, it will lazy load everything if it's not there on the page, to increase your page performance and all that sort of stuff. So that, again, we tried to build in all that hardcore engineering so you don't have to worry about it up front.
Brilliant.
That's cool. So now, of course, I've built my processes, I've built my functions, I've saved them, I've named them. Like you saw before when I was doing the databases, I can call those from any part that I want to. So if I want a button there that says find my APIs, find my location, click. I just connect it to the process, and away it goes, and everything else happens for you behind. Now, so we've built our pages, we've got processes, we've got functions. Now, languages is always the next thing that people talk about, right? So, how can I make my site or my app multilingual? Now, we talked about Appeggio having a content management system that drives everything in behind. Languages are just as easy. So I can come in here, click on the language button, add a new language. I can add as many languages as I like. And I can add right to left languages as well if I want to, so that, if I'm doing Arabic or something or other, the Appeggio will just handle that for me. All you need to do is do the translation at this point in time for whichever ones you want. Obviously our next obvious step is to do that translation for you for start for 10, and you can play with it. But that's all there. You don't need any plugins, any third-party stuff to make it work. It just does it automatically in the background. So then that sort of leads me on to the next item here at the bottom, which is settings. Now, we sort of touched on this earlier on when we looked at colors and fonts, but there's a lot more stuff here than you might think. So if I come to the General tab, I'm not going to go through these in any particular detail because there's lots of stuff going on here. But everything that you might need to describe your application, everything from your basic business contact information and how people should get you there, your Google Analytics tags. We just showed you the Google Maps, so it's asked for Google Maps key. All of your social links, they're all there. But interestingly, this section here is quite powerful. So you may or may not want to be able, you may not want to, collect cookie information. You can turn that on or off simply by clicking that button. You may or may not want to offer multiple languages. You turn that off through that button. You may or not want to offer dark mode again, so you turn it on from that button. And you may or may not want to have a dashboard where people log in after they've registered. So, if you're building a simple brochureware site, you don't need a dashboard. If you're building something where, let's call it an e-commerce shop site, you're going to want a dashboard, right? So the Appeggio lets you drive all that sort of stuff dynamically from this general settings menu. You don't have to know how to code any of that. It just does it all for you in the background. If I go and have a look at some of the other settings, I'm going to come right down I'm going to skip website and mobile. You'll see why in a minute. But I'm going to come down to payment at the bottom. So currently, if you've got a Stripe account, you can add your Stripe account here, and Appeggio will automatically link you with that, and you'll be able to take payments from there. All the stuff that you need for your Stripe keys, just enter those here, and Stripe will handle everything else. Appeggio will handle everything else from behind you. Now, Stripe's the one we've got working now, but of course we'll add all the other ones, PayPal, all the other bits and pieces as we go. But we started with that one and everything, so they're already built in. Of course, if you wanted to, there's nothing to stop you. Let's say you wanted to do PayPal tomorrow. There's nothing to stop you actually going in, building your own process and function to the PayPal API to do PayPal billing, right? But what we're thinking is that, for those common things where people want to have standard integrations into standard things, we'll just build those automatically, and you just go and click the one you want, and away you go. Now, so that's cool. I've built my website. I've made it as funky and as interactive as I want. I've allowed you to do payments, all that stuff. Now I'm going to want to publish it, right? I'm going to actually put it live. It always makes me laugh when we talk about no-code tools, and quite a lot of them, they just give you code at the end of the process, right? It's sort of very ironic. So this is why we actually call Appeggio an experience as a service platform. So we never give you code. We actually do all the publishing for you, all the hosting for you. You can manage and maintain your entire application through Appeggio. So if I click on this button at the top here, it says publish. First thing it will do is give you a preview tab. In this preview tab, you're going to start to see all of your version control information, right? So it'll show you the versions that you've previously generated. Can't share in this demo, but if you wanted to request a backup, all that sort of stuff, that would be here. I'm not going to generate it now because it'll take a second or two for the thing to work, but I'm just going to go straight to the publish tab. Now, what Appeggio will now do is it will walk you through a simple sort of wizard process to collect all of the information you need to publish your application as a website, as a native Android and a native iOS application to the stores directly. And Appeggio will handle that deployment process to those for you, as you go through. So a lot of the information you see here has come from that general tab. So it'll pull it all through for you. If you've already put it there, you can check it as you go through. But now you're starting to talk about all the stuff you need for your iOS app, version numbers, app builds, all that sort of stuff. A lot of it will come pre-filled for you, but as we go forward, and it will do all the incremental build notices and bits and pieces as we go. And there's all the Android stuff. A lot of that is the same. You'll notice we haven't talked about payments or costs anywhere here. It's actually, to this point, completely free to use Appeggio. You don't pay a single cent to build as many or as many applications as you want. The only time you ever pay, we ask you to subscribe rather, is when you get to the point of actually putting your application live. So at this point, you'd pick your plan that you want, you'd make your payment or put your credit card details in, and off you go. And then Appeggio would then handle all those deployment processes and shoot you an email when it's finished with all your links and to go and see and go and play. The other part of that process is you can go, you not just build for free, but you can test for free as well. So that, it'll give you an Appeggio domain, subdomain, just so that you can test your website app on Appeggio subdomain, and it will publish to test flight for you so that you can go and download your apps to see your test flight applications. So only at the point when you're absolutely comfortable that everything is ready to rock, you put your credit card details in, and away you go.
Absolutely brilliant. And so with that, we obviously I'd love to see this in a test environment. But once you get to that point of if you do, or when you do publish, you're saying it gets pushed to all the relative stores and what have you. So the App Store, the Play Store, it would handle the deployment across all of the main platforms.
Yep, exactly right. It does all the builds for you in the background. Creates all the appropriate code. It creates all the appropriate entries for the stores. You obviously have to give it. You're going to need to put in your description of what your application is. That we can. You're going to need to give it some screenshots to put in, that sort of stuff. But all of the technical stuff, it will handle for you in the background.
Brilliant. That's amazing how you can basically push out an application. I mean, 10 years ago, the amount of hoops you need to jump through to build your own application to be published on any of the mobile stores, let alone a web app, was insurmountable. But now, with Appeggio especially, you can deploy and manage a web app, which is then tied to the actual mobile apps as well, which is it's a very rare thing. I don't know many platforms. I mean, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but other quote-unquote no code, which still spits out the code at the end, you'll still need to go through this manual process after the fact as well. It doesn't go through from end to end for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't know of any other one that will do this, to go to this length for you and do it all for you automated. I mean, and it just doesn't do that, right? It will sort out all of your security keys, all of your it will make sure that everything is encrypted, whether that be at rest, in flight, in the database, in the cache. That's all done for you. You never have to worry about any of that in the background. It deploys everything to an elastically scalable AWS cloud environment behind, so you never have to worry about whether you're going to get too many users or you're going to get hit by stuff. It deploys everything automatically to a global content delivery network, so you're going to get the best speed that you can all over the place. In some of the plans, you can even deploy to. You can choose which AWS region you want it deployed to. So if you've got GDPR reasons and you want it deployed in Europe, you can choose that region and away you go. You might have, so as a bank, you might have data sovereignty things, which means that you want to have it all in Australia. You can do it that. You can choose to, this model I just showed you now would choose to would deploy to, let's call it our shared service model, which is the cheapest way. All the data is actually segregated even in the shared service model, but it shares infrastructure, if you like, in that model. You can ask to deploy it to your own dedicated AWS environment hosted by Appeggio as well, so that there's no sharing of application infrastructure as part of that process. Or lastly, if you're really paranoid, you can actually ask to deploy it into your own AWS account. Now, obviously, you have to manage and maintain that if you've got that, but it's a one-click deploy process. You can just deploy it straight into your own AWS account. Not quite there yet, but you'll be able to do that from the AWS store as well.
So, Alex, absolutely remarkable. What you've shown is literally game-changing, in my opinion. Now, the big question, and everyone's asking, how can I get access to such an amazing platform to at least start the builds, and where do I go if you'd like to take people through that?
Thanks, Adam. Look, it's really simple. Just come to appeggio.com. That's APPEGGIO.com. And you'll get your app creation superpowers while you're there. Literally, all you're going to do is click on the sign up. And at the moment, we're taking registration for our beta users. So get your email in there quick, and you'll get early access to the full platform in a week or two's time once we launch the next version.
Beautiful. Well, just want to say it's an absolutely remarkable platform that you've built and designed with you and your team. Very exciting now that we could get access to tools like this to be able to create everything that you can basically imagine and connect it to any database or any integration that you like. And the use cases are absolutely endless. So just want to say thank you so much for your time. And if you want to reach out, or please, what I encourage is sign up and start building. So thank you.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Adam. And look, I must say before I let you go, my co-founder James Ladd, he's the wizard behind all of this, and has built everything from the ground up. And the entire team that sits behind him, they're just amazing, and they've done an incredible amount of work. So just wanted to express my huge thanks and gratitude to them.
Perfect. All right. Thanks again, Alex, and over and out. Cheers.
Thank you.